I'm gonna make another one of these little vents. Here's the setup. Using the table die for the lower and the tracer punch for the upper. I'm gonna be starting with the taller 3.5 millimeter stroke. And then on my final pass, I'm gonna switch to the 1.7 millimeter stroke. We're gonna go 2 passes deep and compare the 2 parts. But that's the setup. The wooden form is the same one that I used in the Pool Max to just trace around the edges and do that test yesterday. The steel plate is just so it's thinner and it's easier to get in with the hammer. I'm going to start with an embossing hammer and work right along the edge and begin the stretch right at the edge of the form. You want to work from the edge of the form to the center. You don't want to work on the center back. But I'll do the first operation and get back. So my sandbag is mounted on basically a bar stool, and then on top of my sandbag I have a piece of sacrificial leather so I don't damage the bag. And that's basically what I'm working on top of right now. You can see I've started at the edge and I've shrank it in, and it doesn't take a lot of force. You just want to come in here and nice and evenly stretch it out. Little hot spot right there, little spot right here. Another thing that I'm using, I made a little, just a small caulking tool. You can get into here and you can use get onto the edges really good. That's it. This is where it all begins. Nice and evenly drawing it out. I also made this sweep. This sweep has a 2-inch radius, and it matches up with our original part. So now I can use this as a gauge inside of here to help judge how close I have it. So I want to try to make it as identical to this as I can. Everything back here is pretty good. This is still a little bit high, and it needs to be forced this way just a little bit. So that's what I'm going to work on now. I'll be using the caulking tool a lot, and even though I don't have it to the right finish, I may use this cross peen just a little bit. But I want to work that edge down and in to where I have the same elevation difference flange to flange, or at least really close right in here. So dimensionally, I'm really close to the original part. I'm getting there. I'm real close. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plan this out, get rid of all these highs and lows and even everything out, and then start over again. Just find out if I need more stretching or this, that, and the other. I am going to use a planishing hammer for this, but this could be done with a post dolly and just hammer and dolly work. It doesn't necessarily have to be done in a machine. Here it is after only a few minutes of planishing. You can see it's a world better. I'm going to get it a little bit closer than that, and then we'll start moving on. Now if you notice, it's got the nice even slope, then it tapers off a little bit. That's going to come to our advantage when we go to put this flange that we fold back. We don't want any raw edges, no sharp edges. So to do that, we're going to tilt a flange back in on itself, hem it onto itself, and that'll keep from having that raw edge. But if we stretch this a little bit more after we cut it, that flange is going to start to curl around on its own, and then we'll be able to put it into position. And then we can finalize this profile as we stretch that to get the flange to come around. And it'll just make life a little easier. So I trimmed it, roughed in my flanges, and I also trimmed this edge. This edge is trimmed a little larger than it actually needs to be. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use this post dolly, and I'm going to define this upper edge, and I'm going to turn this flange down and go from there. You can easily do it with a hammer and dolly. I'm just going to use a post dolly because I like this radius. It matches up a little bit cleaner than any other dolly that I have. So it's going to be a little difficult to see. See how it dives down? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the elevation of this flange and retrim it. And then I'm going to start to work that spot down. When I do that, this flange is going to start to tilt back because this flange isn't changing shape. This is changing shape. This is staying the exact same size. So it's going to want to curl when this starts to grow. For this operation, I'm just sinking it into the bag. Give the bag a rough shape that it needs, nesting it, and then just stretching that edge. The bag will support back here and help support this front edge and allow me to stretch just this area. So I've stretched it out, so now it's even, got a nice flow off of the part. It had the same little walnuts that this did. I just planted my dolly into the bag and just working that edge now. Just working that edge. Cleaning it up.
Okay. I'm gonna nest it in.
Using my reverse curve hammer. Now, I should paint something on the inside of that to keep the two pieces of bare metal from touching, but I'm not going to sweat it. This is just practice parts. There we go. It's hemmed over nicely. I have to clean the shape up, or clean the form up just a little bit. Shape is 3-dimensional, form is 2-dimensional. So I'll just clean it up here a little bit, and we can start filing and finishing. Little flat spot right there. So on the left is the original part that I made yesterday, and on the right is the new part. I did the final trimming for the flange. I still got to clean it up just a little bit. And I did have to take and clean up the flange a little bit and tighten it up on the dolly with the, I used a cross peen body hammer a little bit, and I used hammer and dolly just nest it in the bag and then just use that edge to help tighten this up a little bit. But they're fairly accurate and real close. Now I'm going to start taking and filing, and the file will show me the highs and the lows, and I can do just the last little bit of metal finishing, and then I can burnish them and the parts will pretty much be done. But that's how I did it. So here are our two parts, cleaned up. You can still see I have a little bit of, I'm not a great metal finisher, so there's still a little bit, but honestly, filler primer should take care of any of that. There's a couple of odd and end little tool marks that I need to practice on getting better, getting those out. So that I could probably get that out, but like I said, it's so shallow, filler primer should take care of it. And these are just practice parts anyway. These are ready to weld in now if I wanted to weld them in, but they turned out pretty good. But that's how I made these World War II style aircraft vents, or louvers, or scoops, whatever you want to call them.